نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ولسليمان الريح غدوها شهر ورواحها شهر وسلنا له عين القطر ومن الجن من يعمل بين يديه بإذن ربه ومن يزغ منه عن أمرنا نذقه من عذاب السعير. يعملون له ما يشاء من محاريب وتماثيل وجفان كالجواب وقدور الراسيات. اعملوا آل داود شكرا وقليل من عبادي الشكور. فلما قضينا عليه الموت ما دلهم على موته إلا دابة الأرض تأكل من ساته. فلما خر تبينت الجن أن لو كانوا يعلمون الغيب ما لبثوا في العذاب المهين. Respectful honourable friends, in last week's tafsir, the verse that we had covered, in it Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had made mention of Sayyidina Dawood alayhi salatu salam and the various virtues that Allah ta'ala had given Sayyidina Dawood alayhi salatu salam, the abilities that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had given Sayyidina Dawood alayhi salatu salam. When these verses Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had revealed, due to the objection that the mushrikeen had with regards to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala resurrecting mankind on the day of Qiyamah, that when things have now been destroyed and perished, how can life be given to them again? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala proves here that when those have been created by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the likes of Dawood alayhi salatu wasalam, Allah ta'ala has given him such ability of how even iron became soft in his hands. The mountains and the birds would recite with him. Then just imagine how much power and qudrat Allah Ta'ala has, the giver of these powers. And then after mentioning Sayyidina Dawood alayhi salatu wasalam, Allah Ta'ala then mentions with regards to his son, Sayyidina Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam. Just the way Dawood alayhi salatu wasalam was a king and he was a Nabi of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Sayyidina Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam as well, a Nabi of Allah and a king as well. And the kingdomship that Allah Ta'ala had granted to Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam was one which Allah Ta'ala had not given anybody else at all, which we shall cover. And some examples of the mighty kingdomship of Sayyidina Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam that Allah Ta'ala mentions here, that وَلِسُلَيْمَانَ الرِّيحَ غُدُوُّهَا شَهْرٌ وَرَوَاحُهَا شَهْرٌ, that for Sulaiman we have placed the wind at his service. غُدُوُّهَا شَهْرٌ وَرَوَاحُهَا شَهْرٌ. In the morning, its travel in the morning was a month's journey, and its travel in the evening was a month's journey. So one of the qudrats that Allah Ta'ala granted Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam was that just the way the mountains and the birds were subservient to Sayyidina Dawood alayhi salatu wasalam, here the wind was subservient to Sayyidina Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam. Allah Ta'ala says, وَلِسُلَيْمَانَ الرِّيحُ غُدُوٌ and رَوَاحٌ. These are utilized for travel or when a person travels in the morning, that is Ghudubun, and Rawhan is when a person travels in the evening. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that the wind was such subservient to Sayyidina Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam that he would set off in the morning. And this is not only small carpet, but his entire throne. And on that he would travel. And this in the morning period itself, he would be able to travel a month's distance. And then, وَرَوَاهُ شَهْرٌ, after Zohar, he would travel. That's why where it is mentioned of traveling morning and evening, we regard maybe traveling morning as morning and evening as evening, but it's not necessary that it means evening itself. Because traveling in the evening would not be safe, so they would travel after Zohar. So either early in the morning, and then after Zohar, or a little while after Zohar, towards Asr side. So in the morning he would be able to travel, and the wind would take him to a distance a month from where he would be. And then he would, from there in the evening, be another month's journey away from where he is. Sayyidina Hassan Basri rahimahullah mentions that Sayyidina Dawood alayhi salatu wasalam would leave Damascus in the morning, and he would reach Istakhar in the afternoon, and he would have his meals there. And then he would leave from there, and he would reach Kabul by the evening, and he would spend the night there. And he says the distance between these places is the distance of a fast traveling horseman. A month's journey of that too of a fast traveling horseman. So a fast traveling horseman will just put his head down and on the go. So that is the amount of how much Sulaiman would cover during just the day itself. And Allah Ta'ala had given him kingdomship over the entire world, or whatever the world was at that time. So just imagine in a short period of time from where to where he would be able to get to. That is how Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala had made the wind subservient to him. Hassan Basri rahimahullah Tabari also mentions that the reason why Allah Ta'ala had given Sayyidina Dawood, Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam, and made the wind subservient for him was, and this was his mode of transport. So aeroplanes came a lot later, and that too jets and rockets, fast planes, they could not beat the speed of Sayyidina Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam. And there were no crashes as well, and no crash landing either. That Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam on one occasion, whilst he was busy with his horses, that he became so engrossed in them that he missed the Asr Salah. The Asr Salah passed by. So out of that he became so remorseful for it that he slaughtered over 12,000 horses. And all these horses were his own horses. So it wasn't the Baytul Mal that belonged to the public. His own personal horses. During the Shariat of And in the Shariat of Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam, horses were halal. So it was part, this way they would slaughter cows and goats. They would also slaughter horses. So it wasn't a case of just slaughtering them and putting them to waste, but it was his own first of all, and he slaughtered them, and it was eaten as well. He distributed it, so the Qurbani was made of it. So because he made Qurbani of his conveyances, Allah Ta'ala in reward of that gave him this conveyance. Allah Ta'ala made the wind subservient for him. So now he wouldn't travel by land, he would travel by air. So he did the air miles. He had air miles. So Allah Ta'ala is mentioning that how Allah Ta'ala has given this. And when Sayyidina Dawood alayhi salatu salam would travel, he would travel on his throne. And his throne itself would have his whole family with him, as well as his army with him on it. So that is how large his throne was, and with that he would travel. That is one of the qudrat that Allah Ta'ala and powers that Allah Ta'ala had given Sayyidina Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam. And the other is وَصَلْنَا لَهُ عَيْنَ الْقِطْرِ. And Allah Ta'ala mentions, and we also caused for him عَيْنَ الْقِطْرِ, spring of copper, أَصَلْنَا لَهُ, to flow for him. And to flow for him a spring of copper. Just the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had made iron soft for Sayyidina Dawood alayhi salatu wasalam, here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made copper soft for Sayyidina Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam, to the extent that it would actually flow for him, and there was cause a spring of molten copper, as the Mufassirin mentioned here. Qitr refers towards that copper which is now, that has melted. So molten copper would flow for him. And as Al-Basir Rahimullah mentioned that it would flow, and the distance of it was 3 days journey. That is how long, large spring Allah Ta'ala had given for Sayyidina Sulaiman alayhi salatu salam. And the reason for this is so that he could use this in a very easy manner. So that whatever utensils, because he had such a mighty army, and they would all travel with him, so whenever there would be need for utensils and that, they would be able to make it themselves with this copper. So he could use it how he want to, without having to melt it, without having to mine it. So Allah Ta'ala had made this subservient to Sayyidina Sulaiman alayhi salatu salam. And then, along with that, وَمِنَ الْجِنِّ مَنْ يَعْمَلُ بَيْنَ يَدَيْهِ بِإِذْنِ رَبِّهِ. And this is just shows the great mighty sultanate of kingdomship of Sayyidina Sulaiman alayhi salatu salam, that it wasn't just the air, the wind and copper and that, but Allah Ta'ala says even those, there were those of the jinn who used to work before him by the command of his Rabb. وَمَنْ يَزِغْ مِنْهُمْ مِنْ أَمْرِنَا نُزِغْهُ مِنْ عَذَابِ السَّعِيرِ. And those of them who turned away from our command, we would make them taste the punishment. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also made the jinn subservient to Sayyidina Sulaiman alayhi salatu salam. And مَنْ يَعْمَلُ بَيْنَ يَدَيْهِ, Allah Ta'ala mentions بِإِذْنِ رَبِّهِ, that they would work in front of him, in front of his eyes. Meaning that they were subservient to him. That they were not controlled, but they were themselves submitted to Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam, that they would work in front of him, bi'idhni rabbihi, and that too through the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if there were any of them who then turned away from the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, meaning to refuse to work for Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam, Allah Ta'ala says, وَنُذِقْهُ مِنْ عَذَابِ السَّعِيرِ. We would make them taste the punishment of the fire. Some hadithi mufassirin of that opinion, min adhab as-sa'ir, refers towards the hereafter, the fire of Jahannam. That an amrina here refers towards iman. That if they turned away from iman, then they would also face the fire. And others of the opinion that here, an amrina refers towards the command of working for Sayyidina Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam in adhab as-sa'ir was here in this world. That there were certain angels that were appointed to who would punish them with fire. So if they declined, if they did any of the misdeeds, then they would be punished with the fire. So there was an angel appointed for that, so they would be punished here in this world itself. And then being made of fire and then being punished by fire, there's no contradiction in that. Those will feel that what would that punishment be when they themselves are made out of fire? As we are made out of what? One of the main components that we are created from is soil. Is soil, clay, soil. But then if somebody takes some soil or clay and throws that on a person, it's going to still hurt you. It's still going to be able to kill you. It's still going to be able to injure you. So here too, although the jinn are made from fire, but it doesn't mean that they cannot be punished by means of fire. That is also injurious to the jinn. And what is these jinn? How they would work for Sayyidina Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam? يعملون له ما يشاء من محاريب وتماثيل وجفان كالجواب وقدور الراسيات. Here at this point, ومن الجن من يعمل بين يديه بإذن ربي. There is this topic which I had left out now. But just to sort of indicate towards it, is the topic with regards to and the matter with regards to subjugating jinn. Because there are those people who, the Taskhirul jinn which is called, and that is this allowed or not, is this permissible or not. You will have those people for whom the jinn themselves, from their own will, are willing to work for them, help them, assist them. Where this is the case, that this is something which is permissible, as here with regards to Sulaiman alayhi salatu salam. And then there are others who, they subjugate the jinn, and they control the jinn, which is something which is not permissible. Because the jinn themselves are what? They are free creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as insan. Insan would not want to be captured by any jinn or by anybody else, so neither should the jinn be captured as well and utilized for a person's own usages. And there is ways by a person is able to do this. And then you have those who are the shayateen and the sahireen and the sorcerers. They also take help of the jinn, but them taking help of the jinn is by themselves falling into kufr, and by them falling into kufr and doing various acts of kufr, that is how then they get the jinn to become their friends and the jinn to help and assist them. All of these are impermissible. The only permissible is if where the jinn themselves befriend a person and they then help a person, then and are willing to offer their services, that would be allowed. Aside from that, to control a jinn is not permissible. Now here the jinns, what they would do is, يَعْمَلُونَ لَهُ مَا يَشَاءُ, that they would construct and they would do as Sayyidina Sulaiman alayhi salatu salam pleased. As he, Sulaiman said, pleased, they would do what? يَعْمَلُونَ لَهُ مَا يَشَاءُ مِن مَحَارِيبٍ. They would construct maharib. Maharib means buildings. وَتَمَاثِيل, sculptures. وَجِفَانٍ, dishes. كَالْجَوَابِ, like large dams. وَقُدُورِ الرَّاسِيَاتِ, and large pots. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says from the things that these jinns would do is, one is يَعْمَلُونَ لَهُ مَا يَشَاءُ مِن مَحَارِيبٍ. Maharib refers towards a huge building, or the inside of a building. It is for this reason that in the masjid you have the area which is called the mihrab. And this is where it comes from, Maharib mihrab. During the time of the Sahaba radiallahu ta'ala, mihrab used to be utilized for a masjid. So here too it would mean masjid as well, as the jinns assisted, and they are the ones who had built Masjid Aqsa. So Maharib refers towards masjid, and in the general form it refers towards huge buildings. And because huge buildings do what? It protects a person, that's why you have the mihrab. During the time of Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam in Masjid Nabawi, there was no mihrab. The stuff was just straight. There was nothing as we have the semicircle, the mihrab form. The mihrab where is that place wherein the Imam would stand. But because the Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam has mentioned that there should not be any exclusive place for the Imam. Meaning the Imam is part of the congregation. He will stand in front of the congregation, but there will not be an exclusive stand or exclusive area for the Imam, so that he is now totally separate from the musallis. So he will just be in front of the musallis. So for that reason, there wasn't anything specific made. And then later on, during the time of the Khulafa, later on, and the time of the Khilafat, then it became a safety hazard, you can say, a security purpose, that a mihrab would be constructed. Because then when it's open, anybody could come, like Sayyidina Umar radiallahu ta'ala, whilst performing the Fajr Salah, he was martyred from the Saf. So in this way then the mihrab would be made, wherein the Imam and few others, they would be sort of in that area, so they would be enclosed from the front and the side. So that will be a bit more of a protection. And from then onwards, it sort of became a shi'ar and part and parcel of a masjid. But the masla itself is that the imam will not stand exclusively in the mihrab. Hence, he should be either partially in and partially out. Or if he is in the mihrab, then there should be few other musallis with him in the mihrab, a small saf of musallis as well. Then it would be allowed, but he should not be exclusively in the mihrab alone. So here maharib refers towards inner buildings or huge buildings. And this is where you see so many buildings of the past. And when you see the size of the stone, you just wonder that how did they manage to put this in place? And there are no cranes and such things that they have, equipment that they have now. So these type of buildings was constructed by means of the help of the jinn. And then watamathil, sculptures. In the Shariat of Sayyidina Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam, statues were allowed. It is this ummah, for this ummah is that it isn't permissible, but in the past it was permissible, it was allowed. Sayyidina Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam had sculptures of birds on his throne. So tamathil was something which was allowed, so they would construct all forms of tamathil, irrelevant of whether they had life in it or not life, of living objects or non-living objects, because it was allowed during that Shariat. It is our Shariat wherein it has been impermissible, and the reasons why it's been impermissible is, one is that of totally closing the door of shirk, as this is something that led towards shirk. And this isn't just the reason alone why. The other reason, as the Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentions in the hadith, is that the worst of azab on the day of Qiyamah is going to be for those who were sculptors and artists. That on the day of Qiyamah they will be told whatever they had drawn and whatever they had produced, made, will be brought in front of them, and they will be told to blow and put life into it. Why? Because they try to emulate what the creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That when you have somebody, Allah Ta'ala has created them in a certain manner. Now the artist is doing what? He is now sculpturing them, he is now drawing them. Now in that drawing, it's not going to be 100% accurate match. Definitely something is going to be larger or small, or there's going to be deficiencies in it. So he is trying to do what? Copy that which Allah Ta'ala has created. So he'll be told on the day of Qiyamah to put life in it. Allah Ta'ala created it and Allah Ta'ala put life in it. So when you want to try and create in this manner, then now put life in it as well. Yes, drawings of inanimate and animate objects, that is something which has been allowed. As somebody came to Sayyidina Ibn Abbas radiallahu ta'ala saying as well, that this is what my occupation is, to which he mentioned his hadith to him. And he became fearful in that. And he said, this is what my skill is, this is the only thing I know. He said, Ibn Abbas radiallahu said to him, that's fine, and draw. And your artist would draw fine, but draw things of those things which do not have life in it, of trees and mountains and other sceneries, and that you can make a living out of that, that is fine. So what tamathil? Wajifanin, and also jifan refers towards dishes. Kal jawab. Jawab means in big cisterns and dishes the size of a dam. Waqudur, qidrun means a pot. Rasiyat means one which is embedded in the earth, which means one that does not move. Meaning such large pots, that because they are so large, that they are so heavy, they cannot be moved from one place to another. So that which can be moved, these are so large that they could not be moved. Because this was the great mighty kingdom of Sayyidina Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam, and an amount of people he would have, so their pots were also so large. So they would help and assist through the command of Sayyidina Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam in making these things. After mentioning some of these qudrat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the qudrat Allah ta'ala had given to Sayyidina Sulaiman and Sayyidina Dawood alayhi salatu wasalam, Allah ta'ala then says that what should they then be doing? Allah ta'ala says, "I'malu ala Dawood shukra wa qalilun min ibadiy ash-shakur." Allah ta'ala says that, O family of Dawood, express your thanks. وَقَلِيلٌ مِّنْ عِبَادِ الشُّكُورِ, and few of my bondsmen are thankful. And few of my bondsmen are thankful. Here Allah Ta'ala says to Sayyidina Dawood and Sayyidina Sulaiman, because Sayyidina Allah Ta'ala says, of family of Dawood. Sulaiman is his son, so he's going to be family anyway, so he's included in it. That i'malu, Allah Ta'ala doesn't say ushkuru. Allah Ta'ala doesn't say that do the shukr of Allah Ta'ala, show gratitude. But Allah Ta'ala says, i'malu. I'malu means to act, to do an action. So Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, here in the translation, it just says express your thanks, but that is not what i'malu ala Dawood actually means. So i'malu ala Dawood shukra means that a person, that they should physically do the shukr of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. The physical shukr of Allah Ta'ala. Because shukr is of three things. Three types of shukr, or ways of doing shukr. One is where a person acknowledges the bounty of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, that is the first. Because one is a person may not even acknowledge that this is the bounty of Allah Ta'ala. So to acknowledge the bounty of Allah Ta'ala, that is one. The other is to show gratitude by the tongue, by saying and acknowledging it by the tongue. And the third is to carry out the shukr by means of amal. And the amal is that whatever bounty Allah Ta'ala has given, to utilize that in the obedience of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. These are the three rights, and this is what shukr is. And how do you now then carry it out? Various ulama have mentioned various opinions. There are those who have mentioned that salat itself is shukr, Sawm itself is shukr, dhikr is shukr. Meaning the ibadat of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, this itself is shukr. And there are those who have said that taqwa, this is what shukr is. There is no contradiction here, because Allah Ta'ala wants us to do what Allah Ta'ala wants us to do His obedience. So whatever ni'mat Allah Ta'ala has given us, the best way of doing shukr to that is not just Allah Ta'ala shukr, Allah shukr to you, and that's it, alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah, that's also hadha min fadli rabbi. That you have a big huge house and you just put there hadha min fadli rabbi, or you have a car, you put in the back of the stick of hadha min fadli rabbi, but then you're going in that car, you're going to the nightclub. Then this is not hadha min fadli rabbi, this is hadha min adhabi rabbi, because it means of adhab. So it doesn't mean that you just say, put those signs up and just say Allah Ta'ala shukr, and that's nothing at all. But shukr is that a person does amal, and amal means that you practically use those bounties of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala in the obedience of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. And how Sayyidina Dawood alayhi salatu wasalam carried it out. That Sayyidina Dawood alayhi salatu wasalam appointed, and in the family of Sayyidina Dawood alayhi salatu wasalam, they had duty that was given. That not a single moment was spent wherein there would not be a person of the household not in the ibadat of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. So they had a schedule out there, people were given time. So at all times, 24/7, there would always be somebody in the household who would be doing the ibadat of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala. This is how He made amal upon i'malu ala Dawood shukra. But in actual fact, when this verse was revealed, that to do shukr, since Dawood alayhi salatu wasalam then said to Allah Ta'ala, "Oh Allah, how do I do your shukr? When doing shukr itself is a bounty from you, then how am I even able to do your shukr?" That's when Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala then mentioned to Sayyidina Dawood alayhi salatu wasalam, "Al-ana shakarta li ya Dawood," that you have done my shukr. You have implemented and you have carried out my shukr, and that is what, acknowledging this fact as well, that to do shukr is what? Meaning that how do I do your shukr? Because the fact shukr is on what? You do shukr upon, you show gratitude on the bounties of Allah Ta'ala. The fact that I am able to do shukr itself is your bounty. So then I need to be making shukr upon that shukr. And then that shukr and this shukr is also a bounty of Allah Ta'ala. So I need to be doing another shukr upon that. And so on. Where does it end? So the two times, Allah, how do I do your shukr? Wherein that shukr itself is a bounty in ni'mat of Allah Ta'ala. The fact that he understood this and he humbled himself so much to recognize these are all the bounties, that even that shukr is the bounty of Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, and that acknowledgement of that to which Allah Ta'ala says that you have now fulfilled the haqq of shukr. In the hadith of Sahihain, Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam mentions, and this is what Dawood alayhi salatu did, they continued doing good deeds. When Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam mentions the best of salat is the salat of Dawood, and the best of fast is the fast of Sayyidina Dawood. That Sayyidina Dawood alayhi salatu wasalam would sleep half the night, and then he would awaken and he would spend a third of the night in the ibadat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the last sixth of the night, that portion, the end, he would then sleep again. So in this way the night would be spent in the ibadat of Allah ta'ala, where there would be both rest as well and there would be ibadat as well. And the best fast, he says, is the fast of Dawood alayhi salatu wasalam, where Dawood alayhi salatu wasalam would fast one day and miss a day, fast one day and miss a day, alternate days. So in this way, one day he would fast, the next day he would recover from that fasting, and so that he is able to fast the following day. Because if a person is going to fast continuously, they're going to become weak, they won't be able to maintain it. This is an easier way of maintaining it, that you fast one day, the next day, then you recover, fast again, then you recover. Nabi Kareem sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned this is the best of salah and this is the best of fasting as well. That you said Dawood alayhi salatu wasalam did. Which just shows us that this is what actual shukr is, where a person does it in practice. Allah Ta'ala says, but وَقَلِيلٌ مِنْ عِبَادِ الشُّكُرِ. In general, what happens is, Allah Ta'ala says, unfortunately, few of my bondmen are thankful. And this is the case with most of us, that we do not recognize or acknowledge the bounties of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Further, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions, فَلَمَّا قَضَيْنَا عَلَيْهِ الْمَوْتِ, because this surah, as it is, Surah Saba, is mention of Sayyidina Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam anyway. Further, Allah Ta'ala mentions, فلما قضينا عليه الموت ما دلهم على موته إلا دابة الأرض تأكل من ساته فلما خر تبينت الجن أن لو كانوا يعلمون الغيب ما لبثوا في العذاب المهين. And a unique incident here with regards to the demise of Sayyidina Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam. Allah Ta'ala says, when we decreed death for him, فلما قضينا عليه الموت ما دلهم, it was only the termites that made them aware of his death by eating his stuff. So that فَلَمَّا خَرَّ, when he fell, تَبَيَّنَتِ الْجِنُّ, it became evident to the jinn, أَلَّوْ كَانُوا يَعْلَمُونَ الْغَيْبَ, that if they had knowledge of the unseen, they would have not been remained in a humiliating punishment. Meaning here, that the jinn, after all, the jinn are a mischievous creation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They are by nature mischievous. So the jinn, they would carry out the command of Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam, and through this command, Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam had them erecting and building Masjid al-Aqsa. And Sayyidina Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam, end time, also came at the time wherein Masjid al-Aqsa had, either from some narrations it was complete but had some minor work to it, or it was still incomplete and still had some work left. And Sayyidina Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam knew that if he passes away, where it's incomplete, it will remain incomplete. The jinn are not going to remain, they're going to now go off and they're going to carry on with their life, they're not going to complete it. So Sayyidina Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam, to the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what he did is that when it was the time of his death, he stood in the mihrab, the place where he would do the ibadah of Allah. And his mihrab was one wherein he could see out externally what's happening, and those out externally could not see. So he stood there and he could see what's happening around him, and he leaned against a stick, his staff that was there, so that when he passes away, he remains in that posture. He remains in that posture, so that the jinn are still under that impression that Sayyidina Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam is doing the ibadat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he's still alive. And according to Sayyidina Ibn Abbas and Allah and other mufassirin, Sayyidina Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam, when they stood there, they rest on it, and he passed away. And he remained in that position for over a year. For a year he remained in that posture. And the jinn from afar would see, and they were under the assumption that he is still alive and he is doing the ibadah of Allah Ta'ala. Because of his awe, the jinn would not come close to check. And there was no reason for them, there was no suspicion at that time. And because of the awe, they wouldn't even come close to him. So in this way, they continued and they completed the building of Masjid Aqsa. Now there was no need for it because it had been completed. And not only that, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted to prove a point. And what was that point was that the jinn, because they have that ability to also travel and they are able to do a great distance in a short period of time, and because of which they will get certain news from here and there and that. So they themselves make people think that, look, we have knowledge of the unseen. We have knowledge of the unseen. And this is how the amils trick people as well. This is how the amils trick people as well. So the jinn, he just speaks whatever is in the jinn will come inside you, download your data, put a USB and take that out, and then he just mutters that, and you think, oh look, he knows so many things. So he only just reads the mind and tells you what's happening from there. So in this way, the jinn, because they would do this, the jinn would make people think, and people would assume that the jinn have knowledge of the unseen. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wanted to prove that point as well. No, the jinn do not have knowledge of the unseen. So all those who are spellbound by these amils, these jinns cannot give any information of the unseen. Yes, they can get to places where they can gather knowledge and understanding, but they do not have knowledge of the unseen. That only Allah Ta'ala has. And because Allah Ta'ala wanted to prove this point, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made this happen in such a manner that since Sulaiman alayhi salam remained there for a whole year, and the jinn didn't even know. So if they had ilm al-ghayb, so it shows that the ilm al-ghayb became a ghayb. Isn't it? The knowledge of the unseen itself became a ghayb now. That they didn't have, had they known, they would have known that since Sulaiman alayhi salam has passed away, he's not alive there. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it such that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had commanded the wood lice, termites, that they started then eating away at the stuff of Sayyidina Sulaiman alayhi salam, and that's when he lost balance and his body then fell. That's when they realized, and that's when they knew that, look, we don't have knowledge of the unseen at all, otherwise this was in front of us and we didn't know. And then what they did is, they got another stick similar to that of Sayyidina Sulaiman alayhi salam, got some termites to eat away on that, to calculate how long it would take for them to eat the amount that Sayyidina Sulaiman alayhi stick had been eaten, in order for them to gather how long he had remained in that posture, in that position, to which their calculations came out that look, he was in this way for a year. So for the entire year, we didn't even have knowledge of the unseen. We didn't know, and it was right in front of us, and we didn't even have knowledge of that. So how can people believe that they have knowledge of so many other things, and they themselves be under that impression that they have knowledge of the unseen? So Allah Ta'ala says, فَلَمَّا قَضَيْنَا عَلَيْهِ الْمَوْتِ, when we destined maut upon Sayyidina Dawood alayhi salatu wasalam, Sayyidina Sulaiman alayhi salam, Allah says, مَا دَلَّهُمْ عَلَى مَوْتِهِ, that the jinns did not become evident of it, but dabbatul ard, the insects of the earth, meaning these termites, that until they were there, ta'kulu min sa'atahu, that they ate at his minsa, referring to as his staff, upon which he was taking support on. So falamma kharra, when he fell, tabayyanat al-jinnu, it became evident to the jinn, allahu kanu ya'lamun al-ghayb, ma labithu. If we knew or had knowledge of the unseen, then we would have not remained in fil adhab al-muhin. The adhab al-muhin means a humiliating punishment. Humiliating punishment here means that in that knowledge, we saw that he's alive and we still stalked away and we started working for him. This is adhab al-muhin. That had we known of his death, then we don't have punished ourselves by continuing to work so hard. This is what it means, we feel adhab al-muhin. It doesn't mean any adhab al-akhir, it means here this adhab of working and slogging for Sayyidina Sulaiman alayhi salatu wasalam. Because had we known that this was clear, had been clear to us, then we wouldn't have been working so hard to find anybody at all. So this made it clear to the people that the jinns do not possess knowledge of the unseen. And whether Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continues with mentioning, especially Allah Ta'ala in the next verses mentions the people of Saba. Allah Ta'ala granted all the understanding. And as mentioned, the purpose here is to show this was the qudrat Allah Ta'ala has given His creation, and this is the qudrat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala Himself. ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.